So a question came in, somebody taking a certification exam, are there any special requirements or special questions regarding Medicare? Now, they do use Medicare questions on multiple different examinations. And it's kind of interesting. The first time I taught a review class, one of the answers was a HCPCS code, and they're like, well, how am I supposed to know that? Well, I'll get into a little bit of the history of the codes as well. So a little bit about Medicare. Now, we all know Medicare has 4 different parts, okay? There's Part A, that's used for your hospital, your rehab centers, hospice, inpatient type of charges. And Medicare Part B is your physician office, your outpatient claims, your outpatient radiology, things like that. If somebody has Medicare Part C, they're using an Advantage plan, a Medicare Advantage plan. Aetna Medicare, United Healthcare Medicare, something that might be offered specifically in their area through a local exchange. And then Medicare Part D is now the pharmacy plans. So just a little bit about Medicare. There are multiple plans. That's not going to be on your, unless you're taking the CPB billing course, you wouldn't have a specific question like that. The Medicare question is going to be pertinent to the type of service that they provide, so that Part B is typically going to be most of what we have. Now, a lot of different people can be eligible for Medicare. Now, we all know when you turn 65, you get Social Security checks and Medicare, right? Nowadays, there are a whole lot of people, I see this quite often, people who are 65, 68, 70, 72, they're still working. So they might be covered under another insurance, not specifically Medicare. Or we have disabled. We have people who are born disabled and they're put on Medicare. We have people who disability through a job or through a medical condition as they progress through life. So they may not be 65 yet, but they're on Medicare. So it makes it very difficult to use an age basis on an exam. You can't just assume, they can't just say a 67-year-old patient, because not every 67-year-old patient has Medicare. And there's now the Medicare Advantage plans as well. So the codes for services that they provide to Medicare patients are better described by a HCPCS code instead of a CPT code. Now, a little history about CPT. Some people refer to a CPT-4, because it's been around a long time. It actually is the Healthcare Common Procedural Coding System, HCPCS. That's actually what it is called. Now, we came up with the current procedural terminology, CPT. Medicare designed the HCPCS guidebook that we use to describe codes that are not defined by CPT. So that's why Medicare uses a lot of those codes. If there's something that's more easily described by a code in the HCPCS book versus the CPT. So a typical example you might see on a coding exam, they're going to say specifically a Medicare patient or a patient with Medicare came in for. So that's how we know it's going to be a Medicare guided question. They're not going to say a 67-year-old came in to be seen unless they want to check the age range of a specific code. So they're going to say this would be like a question. They came in for a flu-ad vaccination, so a type of flu vaccine. So what's the correct coding scenario? And they'll have 4 different choices. So they'll throw in there like a nurse visit with the immunization and the flu shot code. They'll do the flu shot and the immunization. They'll do the HCPCS code for administering a vaccine plus the vaccine code. And then they'll switch it up a little bit maybe and throw in an E&M with the HCPCS with that. So what they're wanting you to get to is that Medicare is the carrier here, and Medicare will use HCPCS code because they have a better description available. So a lot of questions based upon age, they're not going to do. So if you see any question indicating age, we can't assume that they're Medicare a patient. They would say a commercial insurance plan, a Medicaid insurance carrier, a Medicare carrier. So if we go down a little bit more, there is some other information that we have here about, some of our age-related codes that we go into. You could have, in the HCPCS book, there's one that I use quite often, the Q codes for casting supplies. So that is age-based. It's 11 and older or under 11. We have our qualifier codes for anesthesia based upon age. We have our preventative medicine codes based upon age. So there's a lot of different codes that we use in our coding of procedures that are based upon age. So something may not necessarily be age specific. There are a lot of different E&M codes that are age specific. Our preventative medicine, there is critical care codes that are specified by age. So if they're going to do an age type of code, that's where you're going to see it, like the critical care codes, because it's, I think, 48 months and younger. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head when I made this up. So that's where we're going to see a lot of age codes. But when you're dealing with the HCPCS itself, just remember that HCPCS originally started, they are for use with Medicare and Medicaid, and some third-party payers use those codes as well. Like you might see some of the S codes might be accepted by Blue Cross or some of the other plans. But typically, there's a specific section in HCPCS for medical assistance codes as well. So a lot of these G codes will describe a more specific service. These are level 1 is CPT, level 2 is HCPCS. So they're all the same. They all are codings, but Medicare specifically came out with this guide for codes that don't easily assimilate to CPT. So specifically on Medicare's website, cms.gov, they say because Medicare or other carriers have a variety of services that aren't identified by CPT. They said there's a lot of things out there that aren't in CPT. So they created level 2 HCPCS codes for submitting claims for these items. So if there is a Medicare question and they say a patient with Medicare came in, you might want to double check the codes that are being offered. And if it is a better code description, it's going to be a HCPCS code. It's going to be a G or a G code versus a CPT code. So these have a higher specificity. You think of, because you think of CPT and they give you flu zone and they give you 90653 and some of these other codes to say that we gave them a vaccination, right? But then we have the J codes. The J codes in HCPCS are very specific for the type of medication that, you go by name for that type of medication. It's not just steroid. They're giving you the name of the steroid that needs to be used. So it's very specific. Or those modifiers. All the HCPCS modifiers that we use, a whole lot of them, they are used to specifically say the story, to relay the exact information to the carrier about what's going on. So typically a Medicare question, you're going to be drawn to the HCPCS guide because it's made for Medicare and it is made to a higher level specificity than CPT codes. So I know it gets confusing. A lot of people go, how am I supposed to know that? It kind of comes with experience, and if you take education or training, you'll be taught that Medicare uses the HCPCS codes.
Do you need more medical certification and business training? Learn more at www.cco.us.